I'm Jill Griffin. I am a former media and tech exec turned career strategist, leadership strategist, and executive coach. And I've been doing this work now for about 10 years full time, working with leaders and people within the workplace. It's really important to me that people have the tools they need to show up as a leader. Leadership is a lifestyle choice. This is where you are showing up not only for yourself, but your team, for others. And I call this the next era of leadership. We are living in unprecedented times, my friend. And whether it is about navigating the job market, your team, the velocity of business, AI, social, geopolitical issues, all of that level of uncertainty is going to impact you. It is going to impact your team, the people you work with. And that is why, again, leadership, the next era of leadership needs to be one that is grounded, I believe strongly, in your own identity and not in pressure, not in this hustle, but truly coming back to who we are as people, who we are as leaders, and being able to show up clearly for yourselves, for your team, and for others. That's why I do this work. Working in corporate for so many years and seeing some of the amazing leaders and also seeing people who were sort of bumping and trying to navigate it along the way and the impact that it creates. And again, that's why I call it a lifestyle choice because if you're deciding to be a leader and you are a leader, if you want to be one, whether you're entry level or whether you're on the more seasoned side, if you are going to be a leader, the way you show up, the way you interact with others, all of that, that's the lifestyle choice because it doesn't just stop because you're not on the clock. It's how are you thinking through what you're going to do next and how you're showing up tomorrow based on maybe what happened in the overnight, right? Based on what happened after work and you're going back in, that understanding of how you're showing up for your people is so important. Today, I want to talk about what I call the feedback permission slip. Um, Let me paint two pictures. If you're the leader, you've got someone on your team who's not performing, right? Who's not hitting the mark, and you know it. They probably know it. But every time you think to bring it up, you wait because you're either waiting for it to change, or you're like, you know what, I'll do it when things calm down, when I have more time. And FYI, things never calm down. There's always something. But now what happens is the problem gets bigger because it's further away from the episode or the incidents that are happening. And it feels maybe even twice the size of when you first noticed it. Right. So that's one side of it. The second side of it is you're the recipient of that feedback, right? This is you're in a meeting, things are going fine, your boss leans over to you and says like, hey, after this I want to meet with you and give you some feedback on what I'm seeing here in the overall performance. If you've been on that side of it, I'm going to guess that your stomach is going to do a flip-flop and your brain is going to start wondering, well, wait, is this good feedback, is this bad feedback, what's happening? And you're in that right, you're in that train where the thought, you're wondering, you're trying to figure it out. Whatever comes out of your mouth next, you're not hearing a single word of what your boss is saying because you're probably already in a full-on flight or flight approach, right? So it's the same issue, but there are two seats at the table. And today I want to cover both depending on which side you're sitting at. Because whether you're giving feedback or receiving feedback, the thing that changes it is understand how you're saying it, how you're receiving it. And that's what really changes the relationship and the ability to build trust and move forward. So let's dig in to the feedback permission slip. All right, let's do the leader side first. So you are the one who has to give the feedback. And I'm going to guess that you may be avoiding it entirely, or perhaps you're ambushing people with it. And either way, it's going to destroy your team culture. This avoidance might feel like you're doing everybody a favor. You're not. This is where we're going to remember that clear is kind. And one approach of being avoidance, the other of ambushing them, it doesn't give people a chance to respond and to really come through and like reset their nervous system. So if you're avoiding it, but you've given them a little bit of a teaser on it, that wondering of what you're talking about is turning probably into resentment or disengagement. And you're the one who's contributing to that. That's part of the ambush. So if you're a well-meaning leader who tries to then be direct and just delivers the feedback without warning or setup or any runway, it's gonna hit someone like a brick. That person is on the receiving end of that and they're gonna shut down because all of a sudden this feels like it's some sort of threat. So you're giving feedback, but they're not receiving the feedback. They're trying to survive the feedback. And then while you're walking away thinking you've handled it, they're walking away trying to remember anything you said because they can't, their brain can't handle it because they weren't in a preparation for knowing that this was the conversation that we were having, right? So neither approach builds trust. It doesn't drive performance. It actually impacts performance. And again, like I said, it's going to erode culture. So what do you do instead? I'm going to say you ask for permission. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, but if I'm the boss, why do I have to ask for permission? It's you're asking for permission where you're checking with the person to know, is this a good time? We're going to have this conversation, but whether we have it right this minute or whether we schedule it for tomorrow, we're going to have the conversation. So you're not giving up your agency as a leader. What you are doing is extending the courtesy to the other person that they have a moment to function. They might be like, I do want to talk with you about this, but I got to get my kid from school and I got to leave right now, or I'm going to miss, the pickup time, right? It's not the time to be dropping it on them. They're not going to hear you anyway. So just pausing and saying something like, hey, you got a minute? I want to share something I'm seeing. Or, hey, may I give you some feedback? One thing I always say in coaching, in my coaching practice with people, is I'll say to them, may I make an observation? Because they might be like, yeah, I don't really want your opinion, right? Coaching is an opinion. It's guiding you through your best thoughts, your best brain, your life experience, and how to create the experience that you want based on the goal you want. So that would be opinion giving, right? I'm making an observation. They may or may not want it, but it gives somebody a chance to take a beat, to take a pause. And again, before you roll your eyes and think this sounds super soft or there's like a lot of hand holding here, it's the psychology here that I have always found fascinating. So when you ask permission, you give the other person a moment to have agency. You give them, there's like a signal that the conversation is about to happen. It's not an ambush. Their nervous system gets a beat to prepare. There may even be a teeny pause when that shift gives an opportunity for someone to be opened and not defensive. And it's about who you are as a leader. We don't want to sneak attack somebody, right? It also is saying, like, I respect you enough to ask. And again, we're going to have this conversation, but whether it's today or within the next 48 hours, that can then be negotiated. But you're giving them a chance to pause and not dumping on them just because you have the authority, right? It's treating people on your team and your colleagues like a professional because you also want to be looked upon as a strategic professional and you're a professional who gives people a heads up. So here's a framework that I would suggest making it yours, right? I always say like Jillify something, like make it yours so it feels right. But the first thing you're going to say is, hey, do you have a few minutes? I want to share some feedback on the meeting, right? And if they look alarmed or they're slammed or they say they're emotionally fried, again, opportunity to reschedule it. They might say like, can we do this later? I'm under deadline. I got to get this out, right? Respect it, right? That alone, that person get to push back, that's going to shock people and actually change the way the conversation is going to go, even if it's within the next 24 hours. Step two, you have to be specific, not general. This is not the time to give vague feedback. You need to be more strategic. Like, no one knows what to do with that, right? It doesn't tell them what to do. You want to be thinking through specific feedback. Listen, in the last two meetings, you presented that data without a clear opinion or a recommendation moving forward, and it didn't land well. People didn't know what to do with it. I need you to really pull through and finish the sentence as to what that feedback is, and that is going to help the recipients of that information know what to do with that data. When you give feedback that's direct like that and gives clarity, your team or the person you're talking to is going to realize how that lands differently and that it's something that they can actually work through and work towards. And then they know they can come back to you with potentially discussing how they're going to prepare for that presentation or the data that they're delivering in the room, right? You're creating an ally here with the person and you're not squishing the illumination in their soul. Step three, I want you to lead with why you're bringing it up. Listen, I'm telling you this because I believe you're capable of more and I know that you can get there. But what I'm seeing is because we're not giving the data with a recommendation, the team is getting confused. And there's a possibility here that you're going to lose trust and credibility with your peers, right? That's what you want to say. You're giving context. When you give context, it completely changes how the feedback lands because then it doesn't feel as personal. It's personal. Your name is all over it, right, for the recipient, but it feels less personal when you give context. And step four then is check for understanding. After you've said what you've said to them, ask them, what did you hear on this, right? We're not being condescending. Um, we're not being in a lot of drama, right? Feedback gets filtered often through a lot of noise and emotion, and you want to make sure it landed. So there's a before and an after. So if you're thinking without a permission slip and your presentation isn't, what you said today didn't hit the mark, you need stronger recommendations. Boom. Whoa, that's intense, right? With the permission slip, looks like this. Hey, do you have a few minutes? I want to go through something that I observed in today's meeting. In the last couple presentations, you're bringing great data, but you're stopping short of the recommendation, and it's really underselling your strategic thinking. I would like to help you fix that because I believe this is costing you your visibility. It's the same message, but it has a completely different experience. One lands and the other one sticks out for the wrong reasons. And you're again creating fracture where the person isn't going to trust you if you're the leader. All right, let's look at the other side of it. You are receiving the information. We're going to flip this table. You're in a position where, nobody's really giving you clear direction and they're not being specific. Let's just say this is your scenario. And all of a sudden, you get feedback without warning. Their first instinct, I'm going to say, is probably to shut down, or you go into explanation mode. You want to explain yourself, you want to correct the record, you may want to tell them everything, you want to drag them through all the context, and now they're in like the undertow of what you're saying. They're missing the context, they're missing the circumstances. There's 17 reasons why they're not seeing the big picture, right? All of this is normal. If your brain works this way, welcome to being human. This is what our brains do. But it makes you look like someone who can't take feedback because based on this example, you can't take feedback, right? The other side of it is you shut down, right? You're nodding along, you're saying nothing. You may even walk around the room. You may have nervous energy. You may want to pick up your phone, right? All of these are normal, typical reactions we have. Afterwards, you might vent to a colleague, you might call a friend and be like, "Da, da, 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 can you believe, right?" But all this means in this scenario is nothing happens. In the first scenario, I'm defensing, it means I can't take feedback. In the second scenario, nothing happens because the feedback loop is totally broken before it even started. Here's the reframe. Feedback, even if it is clunky and poorly delivered, even if it is ambush style, all of that is your job as the receiver is not to evaluate the delivery. Listen, I will have enough conversations with people about intent versus impact. In this case, if you are the receiver, it is your best chance of working through that feedback by separating the data from the tone or the intent was pure, but the delivery was